YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back with another Total War Rome 2 online battle. This time I'm playing against Egypt on the Memphis map, and I'm using Epirus again. And I've brought a variation of what I had used against Chris in the last video that you saw. I brought the Molossian dogs again, because I expected javelin spam from Egypt, and I wanted to try this. So what I've done is I've brought very expensive skirmishers. Now, my opponent's javelins aren't cheap. They're like 400 and some odd talents. My guys are 600, so mine are expensive, but I have fewer of them. Oh, whoops. So it means that in the end, he's actually probably spent more money on skirmishers than me because he has 6 light peltas. This is a version of the new meta armies that you're going to see. Egypt's not necessarily the most powerful one to use it, but they're strong. He's got chariots, and he's also got African war elephants. Now, the chariots in this case I think were a mistake. Should have brought another unit of elephants. And the reason I say that is because you're playing against Epirus, man. They got pikes. Pikes are the only thing that can stop chariots. So when you're going to play against a pike faction, don't bring the chariots. That's pretty much the general rule. So I do think that my opponent made an army choice mistake right off the bat. Doesn't mean, though, that he couldn't possibly get them into the back of my pikes, because they will destroy them. He's brought a camel archer, which is a smart move, which he can use it to try and pick at my elephants or other units and try and force an engagement. This is very similar, in fact, to some armies that I've used. Carry an axeman general, 5 or 6 pikes, whole bunch of peltas, a couple of Ptolemaic cav mixed in with some lighter cav. I mean, this is very similar to what you all saw me use. Now, basically my strategy here is I've got a ranged advantage. So I can use my line of long-range skirmishers here to do one of two things. I can attack his infantry, which is here, or I can attack his skirmishers at this point. Either one, when I attack him, his natural reaction is going to be to counterattack my skirmishers with his own. So what I'm trying to do is bait his peltist far enough forward, like maybe say up to about this point, without good infantry support, at which point I release the hounds on both flanks, as Mr. Burns would say, and chase down his light peltist, and they'll take a lot of losses before they can get back to the safety of their pikes. That's the idea, basically. I'm not going to have an easy time getting the dogs to the flank, because he's got cav and elephants and chariots and all kinds of other stuff to help take him down. But you can see here, at this point, I go ahead and release the hounds. It was probably a little too hasty. Could have waited a little later in the game, but what this has done is it pulls his men forward. He didn't get any shots, and now he's got to run away. He sees the dogs at this point. Some of his men are going to get chewed on pretty good. But I want you all to see, he does counter, right? He moves his pikemen forward, drops them into phalanx, and runs his men behind, because the dogs will inadvertently follow and get skewered on the pikes almost immediately. So my dogs won't get near as many kills from the dogs in this battle, but it did a job. And that job was to scare his skirmishers back and force some losses. So the dog attacks themselves didn't pay for anything. Check it out, my dog's still just standing here from his pikes, but what it's doing is it's allowing my Rhodian slingers to fire at will. And now my Rhodian slingers are starting to tear through one of his Egyptian pikemen. My opponent charges forward again, but again those remaining dogs there start chewing on his men in both spots, which screws up his peltist advance, so the dogs are quite useful in this sense. So again, he has to try and run his men back, all the while my Rhodian slingers just destroying his infantry. So if my opponent loses his infantry, he's going to lose the fight. And basically I'm using my cav at this point to put excess pressure on his skirmishers as well. So this kind of demonstrates one way you can fight against the meta builds, and that is to use a range advantage and continually put your opponent at a disadvantage. I would recommend this with a faction that has pikes. Now check it out. So see, look, this is what you're wanting, a micro mistake. He doesn't track this Ptolemaic cav that was, following my own, and it comes into the front of my pikes. So this kind of thing is good for me because it puts more micro focus on for him and puts me in a better situation. I'm constantly lashing out, and all the while my Rhodian slingers continue to get kills, while it's him that has the challenge of how do I get my javelins within range and finally get some kills. Because each time he approaches, I'll just chase him back with cav quickly. Now here he does get close enough, and I let him skirmish a little. This was a mistake. I should have been pushing him back again with my cav, because I could have just done it continually, pushed him back. So what I do now is go ahead and click an attack order with the dog handlers. The dog handlers themselves actually have pretty high attack. This is going to allow me to, again, stop his men from firing. My dog handlers over here actually got stuck on this Ptolemaic cav. That was a mistake on my part again. But look, now these 2 light peltist units are engaged with these dog handlers, which are actually going to get quite a few kills. So Now these dogs have actually probably paid for themselves because they've gotten over a full unit's worth of kills. And he does get some kills on my pikemen here. But he's going to lose all of his javelins, basically, or throw all his ammo. And at that point, he won't have any answer to my Indian elephants, which is going to be a huge problem for him, because African elephants don't do well against them, and chariots don't do well against them. He does still have the advantage of having better shot cav, but I have, you know, the elephants. And again here, look, I'm going to take this charge against this Ptolemaic cav because they weren't prepared. Bam! Smashed into the side of that Ptolemaic cav. That is a good unit. It's still going to be a tough fight. And then I'm going to bring these elephants around to support. And then I'm going to bring another, it looks like Thessalian cav in. I didn't do very good with those elephants. And I see these chariots trying to come around as well, so I've got my eye on them. So I've been trying to give you all ways, or many of you have asked me, how do we stop chariots here? And the best way to stop chariots is with shot cav or heavy melee cav. And you can see I'm going to attempt to do that here with this Thessalian cav. He tries to get behind my lines, but now his chariots are screwed because they have no way to get away from my shot cav. His elephants are under fire from my slingers, and they run amok. And then my shot cav catches his chariots, and you can see the chariots will kill light cavalry, or lighter shot cav like they have here. My Thessalian cav pretty much gets shredded trying to chase these guys down. So if your chariots do get attacked by shot cav, like mine are doing to his, he is doing the right thing, which is to keep moving. But it at least slows them down, and they don't really become super cost effective. Now if you have a heavy shot cav, like a cataphract or something, it ought to lay down his chariots fairly well. But again, if they pull through you, it's going to hurt. My opponent admits defeat at this point, which was nice. I actually had a few other people drop out of the games. I think the admit defeat is working properly now, from what I've seen for the most part. And so a lot of people drop from the game, and that's the way to tell that they're quitting on you now, because when they go, it'll like lag for a long time, and then it'll pop up and say they've left the game, and then it gives you a draw. Lots of people are still doing that. It's very impolite of them, but that's what they choose to do. So look at this. The dogs themselves didn't get a lot of kills, but look what my dog handlers ended up doing in the end. Fantastic. So that's how you would use war dogs, in my opinion. Hope you all enjoyed this one, and HeirofCarthage signing off for now.